All right, we are live. Thank you to everybody for tuning in today on your Wednesday morning. By way of quick introduction, my name is Noah Adelstein. I run growth over here at Netic. And if you haven't heard of Netic before, we're a end-to-end AI revenue engine for essential service businesses, helping companies never miss an inbound lead, book more outbound jobs, deeply understand the sort of analytics within their business, and much more than that. And we're joined today by Jake and Reid. I'll let them introduce themselves in a second, but they're both just extremely sharp, thoughtful, and creative marketers that are at Paschal Plumbing, Air, and Electric. And today we'll be talking all about how they run and think about and have scaled meta ads at their company. And over the last, I would say just like couple months for me, I've talked to a lot of operators that have either written off meta ads, or have had a hard time kind of figuring it out. And so, really excited for the conversation today to kind of peel back what it actually takes to get meta ads to be an effective channel for your business. And then, just one kind of quick housekeeping item, and then we'll jump right in. If you have any questions during the conversation, there's a Q&A tab on the right side of your screen, and feel free to pop those in, and we'll be handling those as we go. So yeah, without further ado, Jake and Reid, do you guys want to do quick introductions?
Yeah, sure. Jake Winchell, I'm the Director of Sales and Marketing with Paschal Air, Plumbing, and Electric. Been with Paschal for a little over 5 years now, and my day-to-day is to work with our marketing team, both internal and then external vendor partners, as well as our field sales team and inside sales team.
I'm Reid Glatter. So I'm the digital marketing and lead generation manager here at Paschal, and my job is get leads and keep the text moving.
And can you guys maybe just quickly talk about the sort of size and scale that Paschal is operating at, in terms of states and locations or anything, just to give everybody a sense of kind of what game you're playing?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Paschal, we're independently owned. We've been growing quite a bit the last couple of years, really since 2020. We are in 4 states now, so we're in Arkansas, Oklahoma, Missouri, and Texas. We have 12 active locations, and typically adding a couple locations every year or so.
Nice. Yeah, that's awesome. And obviously then lots of markets to go figure out all of your marketing in, especially as you go and launch new ones and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you guys maybe want to just kick off with kind of what your experience has been like with meta ads historically before figuring out and making it work at Paschal, and maybe like any, skepticism or preconceived notions as you were thinking about, meta as a channel?
Yeah, I'll start, and then I'll let Reid kind of dial in on some of his experiences. So I think it probably helps to give a little backstory. So prior to working here at Paschal, I did some consulting work for about 5 years, from 2015 to 2020. Traveled around the U.S., worked with a number of retail customers, home service customers, medical customers. And there's varying degrees of any product, right? And so Meta, it was one of those, like, worked for some, didn't work for most. And when I came into Paschal, there was some trial and error that occurred in the past. And we did some ramping up in the early stages, the first few years, and we had like marginal success. And there was a few products that we actually, whether it be just luck of the draw or good ad copy or seasonality, we did okay with, but it wasn't sustainable. And so, over the last year or two, it was one of those, like, put this thing on the back burner. We're seeing better success with other products, but we don't want to kill it per se. Reid joined the team a couple of years ago now, and Reid can kind of share his background with Meta specifically, but came in with like a little bit different perspective, and it kind of challenged some of my thinking and opened up a few different ways for us to explore it. And I mean, we don't have it all figured out, to be fully clear. Like, I'm going to say that like 6 times throughout this chat, but what we have done is stress tested a little bit more, and we'll get to that later in the conversation. But I think having an open mind instead of just that doesn't work, we're going to move on to something else, is where we're at today. So, Reid, you want to kind of give your background?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off that, I mean, before we got it to work, I believed it could work. I think that's really the first step. Before Paschal, I was in an agency role, so I ran a bunch of different ads for a bunch of different companies across a lot of different industries. And for the most part, it was like resetting every time. So I didn't have like a playbook when I would jump industry to industry. So I knew through experience, like it takes time to figure it out. And it's really a trial and error game. I mean, you're doing a lot of testing, but once you figure it out, it's well worth it. So, again, it's usually not like an instant success, but once you find that winning formula for your brand, it's usually something repeatable and something that you can typically scale. And then obviously once you scale up, all the revenue from that covers all of that initial testing. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Meta, especially as a channel with so much upside, because obviously so much of the country is sitting on Facebook or Instagram, nearly every single day, and so if you're able to go crack it, it's not just this sort of like tiny sliver of revenue upside. It's actually like super meaningful and important. So that totally makes sense. Do you guys maybe want to just share like how you started going about testing Meta and what that process looked like? Like I imagine, Reid, you got to Paschal and you're like, okay, like let's go test this. I think we can make it work. What you guys try? What didn't work? How did you decide, what to cut the plug on?
Man, we tried like everything. We tried super pretty ads, super ugly ads. We tried instant forms, phone calls, messenger. We tried video. We tried images. We tried to be, clever or cute in the ads. We tried to be super direct. We tried, memes. Like, I mean, pretty much anything you can think of, we've tried it. I think at the end of the day, it really is all about testing, because what's going to work for your specific company is not necessarily going to work for us, and vice versa. You're going to have different processes. Your team's going to work differently. I think if I were to go into some things that didn't work for us, and this isn't necessarily that they can't work, it's just we're not there right now. On Meta, like phone calls is really difficult. You're going to get a lot of spam calls. Trying to be too like cute or clever, that didn't work for us. Super ugly ads and super pretty ads, really polished, didn't work for us. Those are a few of the areas that you almost want to be in the middle on a lot of these things, but again, you'll find what works for you. I think another thing to keep in mind too is that, video is great, and we've had a lot of success with video, but it's more difficult. And so I would say, when you're first getting started testing, you're going to have a lot more success quicker with images, and you're going to be able to iterate and create a lot more variations and versions of your creative with image.
And so when you guys started testing, different ads and audiences and, messages and campaigns, how did you sort of think about like how much budget to put into specific tests, like when to cut the cord and say, okay, like this is clearly not working, we need to change? I think like as companies are trying to figure this out, like it's one of the challenges. Like you don't want to obviously kill something that could end up working too soon, but also don't want to, spend a bunch of time and money on things that are sort of like obviously not winners pretty quickly.
I think, on the budget side, I think this story will be helpful because it really was how I personally processed through like, all right, what's the investment? When is it time to, cut the cord? I came into this company, like I said, 5.5 years ago, and we were doing direct mail and before I got here. And, as a, performance marketer, like, we're looking at cost of deliverables, CPMs, like direct mail at a, $1 plus cost per piece, or $1,000 plus cost per thousand. Like it just seemed outrageous to me. And so looking at the ROAS though, like, for X amount of pieces that were sent and the, inbound booking rate, the appointment setting rate, the conversion by the sales team on those pieces, the math worked. it just was a big investment on the front end. You're spending $500,000, like for direct mail, just again, seemed outrageous. And I think framing that same mindset into Meta, like, all right, this is just this additional arena, to your point, that the vast majority of the population's on. We can't dabble here. We have to either do it or don't do it. And so, like any media, we don't really go like a quarter of the way in, like we're going to go 100% in, we're going to give it its due diligence, we're going to spend proportionally, and figure out what does actually work. And so did it work across the board? Of course not. And certain, to Reid's point, ad creatives, but also offers. In our industry, I think we're all very fixated on getting, just fill the board, demand service. And Meta's not a demand service platform. And so if you're trying to compare it to, Google or PPC campaigns, LSA campaigns, even some of the lead aggregators, like you're comparing apples to oranges. And so we have found that, we had to find the right offer, the right ad copy, and fixate on that for this platform, not compare it to the other platforms.
Yeah. And I think when you're testing too, like, you got to be realistic with your test budget. You can't start at $20 a day and expect results. There is a factor of like, what's your risk tolerance? What do you have to spend on your research and development on this platform? And you also got to know, the more you spend, the faster you're going to collect data. So like at the end of the day, it's just a numbers game. Like you're trying to go through the different breakpoints in the ad and figure out like, okay, this is why it didn't work. And the more you're able to spend, the faster you're able to collect that data and make those improvements.
Yeah, I think there's a couple like really useful things to quickly tease out there, just in case anybody kind of missed any of it. So, I think number one, what you guys are saying is like, and Reid, what you were saying is in Paschal's situation, like video worked, but was challenging. Really nice images, not great. Really kind of like low quality images, also not great. So you ended up kind of finding the sweet spot and we'll talk more about what really worked. And then Jake, I think like you made very good points. It's like, obviously like every business has different budgets and kind of what you're comfortable spending as a percentage of revenue, et cetera. But you sort of looked and said, look, like we're making like this huge investment in direct mail and we should look at it more like that, as opposed to some channel, like you said, Reid, of throwing $20 a day into. And yeah, it's like the more money you spend, the faster you're going to learn, which is ultimately like the objective, right? Is to go find the winners. And, and I think it's also like, people on Facebook or Instagram are looking at those channels at a different time of day, and in a different headspace than like the kind of person who's Googling, right? Like I need an emergency repair or something. And so like thinking about the campaigns through that light also makes sense. One other just question on this, as you guys were testing, like, did you sort of think about on the campaign level, okay, like we're going to throw X budget into this campaign and that will tell us it worked or not? Or like, how did you kind of calibrate, like, here's like an experiment we're going to run and like it's run its due course and we've learned it's not working or it is working.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like an art rather than a science, there's not like a magic formula I'll use to say, hey, here's a test budget. But I mean, let's say if we say, hey, it'd be great if we could spend $500 a day on this. Maybe we started $100 a day as a test budget, so it's kind of just where you're at, where your pocket is, and what's your risk tolerance.
Yeah.
How fast you want to go too, right? If we could start at that full 500, we're going to grab a lot more data than the 100. So.
And going in, did you guys have like numbers in mind where you felt like, okay, we have to hit, X ROI in order for this to work, and then you kind of measured everything against that threshold?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, when it comes to ROAS numbers within, the industry, everybody has their own way that they want to like discern their numbers. Obviously the higher, the better. How do you attribute, your revenue? We have some floor metrics that we like to focus on, and like, we know over time they'll be optimized to those higher numbers. But I think a baseline was like, we want to find a way to get to 5. We want to 5X. How do we get ourselves to 5X as fast as possible? And, can we get it to 7? Can we get it to 10? Can we get it to 14, et cetera? And we have varying cases, within Meta. We're in some small markets, we're in some middle markets, we're in one of the biggest markets. And so, those ROAS numbers definitely vary on competition, market penetration, et cetera. But yeah, we wanted to get to that 5 like as fast as possible.
Okay, and so then everything you're doing is through that light when you're running the campaigns. If it's not at 5, then that was kind of like the sign that you should cut it. And I imagine, like, if it was not anywhere close to 5, you would be cutting it sooner. And if it was 4 or 4.5, then it's like maybe give it a little bit more.
Yeah, and one thing I want to touch on that, like those numbers, is we fixate on this a lot, and whether it's Meta or any other channel, but like the break points of how to get to the 5. The 5 is the outcome of the entire process. As a marketer, we're all challenged to get opportunities. And so what's an opportunity? It's a lead. And from the lead, does it get booked? If it gets booked, does it stay booked? Is it canceled? And then if it's not canceled, does it get ran and completed? And then on the completed side of it, is it converted and closed? And so you've got, 4 or 5 different spots where that could break. And so we're not just looking at, spend 20,000. Did we get a ROAS of 100,000? Sure, cool way to look at it. But how do we get 5 points better in booking? How do we get 8 points better in cancellation? How do we get 10 points better in close rate? Like, those are the things where you can get ultra meticulous on making a stronger ROAS. And it's not just quick, kill decisions because the numbers didn't work out in the first month.
Yeah, 100%. I've been calling it past couple of weeks like a left to right analysis. Like, you just start at the very beginning of the ad and just look at the entire journey of like what happens, and you're gonna find like sometimes a break point is not what you think. And if you just assume, like, looking at the ad, oh, this doesn't work, our ROAS is a 3, well, why is it a 3? If you kind of start, like Jake said, and walk through all of those points, and not just when the lead comes in. I mean, that's like when the lead comes in, there's a lot that happens, but also on the meta side too. Like, okay, is the ad even on? Are we getting impressions, right? Like, what's our cost per impression? That's super high. Why is that super high? Are we getting clicks to like our conversion location? Are people going to our landing page? Or are they going to our form? They taking the action we want? If they are, like, how many of those people are actually converting into a lead? And then you have all the other things beyond that. And within each of those spots, there's lots of things that can go wrong. And so, you can have an ad that's like perfect on all accounts except one area. And if that one area is broken, if you fix that, that might be the thing that gets the ad to work. So I think that's a good way to walk through. And like, it's not just, like you said, oh, we're under a 5x, kill it, or we're close, so we'll keep it on. It's like, why are we at a 0x? Because that's really where you're going to learn. Like, why didn't we get any leads? What was the thing that went wrong? And just fix it step by step, and eventually you'll have a process. You'll learn a lot.
Yeah, I think it's a very good point for 2 reasons. One is, like, you have to be extremely rigorous across the entire funnel, right? And so, like, running meta ads effectively is not only like go launch the ad to the audience and get the lead, right? It's like get it all the way through to booked revenue. And if you're not paying attention to the whole funnel, it might look like it's actually not going well, or it might look like it's okay and it could be way better. And then the other point is, like, these things actually like get better over time as you like optimize, right? And so that also means if like your threshold is 5x and you're starting out at 3 to 4x without any optimizations to like convert it downstream, then that likely means that there's actually like tons of opportunity to continue to raise the ceiling on the success. And so I think it's like not only go look at like the first campaign, but also like then double click, where's the breakdown? Is it the leads are too expensive? Is it we're not converting them, right? And you can kind of diagnose and then increase across the board over time. How did you guys like, so obviously you cracked it and, started working for you all, like, were there any like pieces that felt like big unlocks to like really making it work beyond, tons of rigor in the funnel, as you kind of thought about like types of creative that worked or audiences or offers and, and things like that?
Yeah, Reid, you want to kind of do like that first 3 months to 6 months transition, like how we identify that over that time period?
Yeah. I mean, it really took like 3 months of testing to begin to figure out our current process. And then it was really like another 6 months after that to get super dialed in. Yeah, it definitely takes a lot of time and energy. I think the biggest, one of the biggest unlocks was Netic. I mean, being able to respond really quickly to the leads that come in is a huge part of it. That's really going to help. I think another big one is going high ticket. I mean, one of the things we tested in those first 3 months was like, hey, can we make a lower ticket offer work? Can we make a tune-up work? And it's not that you can't get those to work. It's just it requires a lot less yield or requires a lot less conversion if you have a bigger ticket thing. So, a $10,000 job is going to move the needle a lot faster than an $100 job or a $500 job. And so those are two things that I think were really big for us. Jake, I don't know if you have anything you want to add on those.
Yeah, I mean, the way we like to look at Meta as a whole, it's kind of similar to like the direct mail comparison is, for lack of better terms, retail offerings. If you're just looking for demand service, probably not the right platform, or certainly we haven't figured it out. But if you're looking for retail offerings, and that's just your large tickets, it's system replacements, water purification. We do whole home generators. Our first success was whole home generators. It's a retail product. It's a nice to have, not a need to have. You can position your traditional retail offerings, price and payment. They're kind of sexy. Like, it's following weather. Like, it's pretty easy to get people's attention. We happen to be blessed to live in Tornado Alley, so tornadoes come through. People are pretty curious about them. So, so the creative side, having the right hook. And then the next step I would say that was pretty impactful on the response to lead is qualifications. In the very beginning, when we started to, we'll say like figure it out, how to actually get people to respond, we were really wide in our qualifiers. So we were getting a ton of leads, but in that volume, there was a lot of unqualified leads. Beacon score, like you can't really check people's credit score, via meta ad. So some of your like filtering or your audience selections, you have to be a little careful there. So in the beginning, like we were flooded, we were inundated with people who were wanting these products, but probably weren't qualified. And over time, over the testing phases, we started to put more gates into the qualifying process on the lead forms. Still playing within like customers' comfortability, but they were disqualifying themselves a lot more. So our cost per lead actually went up, but our booking percent and our quality of lead dramatically improved. And so that was a huge difference. And on the Netic side, I think the numbers, like here's a specific number. We started booking around like 10, 15-ish%. When Netic rolled out like the lead form response and then voice outbounding, massive game changer for us. And I'd say like the last unlock that we've really appreciated was Facebook Messenger. So Netic is literally responding via Messenger, conversation, and our booking rate's upwards of 30% now on these leads. So I mean, it doubled our booking rate.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I think you guys just shared a ton of very, very good knowledge and insights. So just to recap a couple things, one is going after the bigger ticket items is a way to very quickly see the ROI on Meta, because if you're going after, $100 tune-ups, then you just get a lot of bookings for it to really work. And so that was like one pretty big important unlock. And I think there was a question in here kind of about, any thoughts on what works better, low cost foot in the door versus replacement ad, and so I think that answers that one. And then there's obviously like the speed to lead component here that was a huge unlock. And so Jake, you're saying like obviously one of the things we do at Netic is speed to lead and helping our customers reply very quickly, and whether you use Netic or any other tool, like the goal is obviously that anybody that follows up or, request information is getting hit absolutely immediately, right? And for you guys, that meant like Facebook Messenger ads, that meant like calling them right after they filled out the form. And that like more than doubled conversion rates, which is obviously like super meaningful. And then I think the last thing you're saying is like add a bunch of qualification up front. And so like that lowers the number of leads, which maybe is like a little bit painful on that side, but actually like massively increases conversion rate, filters in the people that are a good fit, allows like your team to actually spend the time on the things that matter the most and have like promotion.
Yeah. On the filtering, it's like get more with less, like when you have Netiq booking it doesn't really matter if you're getting a ton or a little, but there is follow-up. Like our comfort advisors do have to run the appointments, and like, being able to remove that waste is important. I would say too, like on the filtering side, like there's just like we're saying, hey, like super ugly ads and super pretty ads, neither of those worked well for us. Same thing with qualifications, like no qualification was really bad for us. And then if you overqualify, like that kills everything too. So, there's kind of a balance. And same thing on the low ticket, high ticket thing too. Like your foot in the door, entry, tripwire kind of offers, like they definitely can work. It's just like, you got to be like, it's got to work for your business. Like, what is your process? Like, can your technicians or your sales guys, do they have a good process for that? I think going straight for the high ticket is typically easier, especially to start. So.
Yeah. And you guys were also saying like some of the non-discretionary stuff was also like useful.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, so Corey asked, at the end, could you share some examples of ads that have worked? And, if you're seeing, like, are you having success with the form fills? We were talking about this before, like, for anybody that's curious, one of the sort of, nice and also not nice things about Meta, if you want to protect what you're doing is everything is actually like public, right? So you can actually go look on, and Google Meta ads library and search Paschal, and you'll actually see like everything that the team is running, and so there's actually like no secrets for better and worse on that side. And you can do that at any company in your market. But a question I have on this, like, it all sounds great, but I think one of the kind of inflection points here that matters so much is just like running good tests with high quality copy and being rigorous about knowing what to do. And obviously some level of that is an art, right? Which is like, using like intuition and punchy copywriting and, knowing like what to do and not do. But maybe for somebody that like isn't exactly sure where to start and is like, okay, like this makes sense. I want to like have a bunch of rigor, right? But it's like you can only run so many tests at a given time. And so you have to like be really thoughtful about what to prioritize. Like how did you guys kind of think about, figuring that out and any tips for somebody that's, maybe starting kind of earlier on and it's like, I could test anything, like where do I start?
Reid, do you want to take that?
Yeah, definitely. If it was me, if I was starting in a new industry, I would try to go for something high ticket, like I said, and also like Jake mentioned earlier, the retail products. And what we mean by that is like no one's going on Meta, they're not on Instagram or Facebook to go, get their toilet fixed. So don't try to sell that. They're on there typically for entertainment, and what stands out there and what grabs people's attention is a really good, compelling offer. And so it's almost got to be something that you can get people excited about. And like, yeah, for some people, maybe a generator isn't exciting, but like you can make it an exciting product in addition to your home. Like there is some value you can convey through that. I think once you pick your high ticket, what you can make exciting, then it really comes down to direct response copywriting. And so you can't dance around what you want the person to do. You can't it's very different from branding on the lead generation side of things. And your branding is going to raise the tide, right, and lift all the boats. But on the lead generation side of things, you have to clearly state what you're wanting them to do. You got to clearly state the offer. You got to make it compelling. I think I would pick my offer, what I think I can get people excited about. And then if I'm not familiar with what direct response copywriting is, I would go study that and learn from, you can look up on the internet. There's tons of great books out there. There's lots of really good people to learn from, but I think that style of ad is going to do the best. So that's where I'd start.
Yeah, I think that's great. As a reminder, we have about 15 more minutes. So if you have, and any other questions or things you want to make sure we try to hit on between now and the end, pop them in. And if you see any questions that you also want answered, like throw those some upvotes and stuff like that. So let's maybe talk about scaling this, and so I imagine you guys kind of knew it was working when you were hitting the ROI thresholds that you had. Like, how did like what you were doing change as you scaled it? How did you guys like build more rigor and experimentation? Could maybe talk about like how many ads you guys have tested, all that good stuff.
Yeah, I think I go back to the numbers. Like, I'll handle the numbers side, and Reid's a creative guy. When it came to like understanding your numbers, our industry struggles with seasonality. I think it's we all have that same bathtub curve challenge of in the summer this is all easy when it's hot. HVAC's an easy industry. And then there's like 8, 9, 10 months, depending on what part of the United States you're in, that it's a slug, it's hard. And so I think trying to figure out, where can you go get like the best revenue replacement leads, and how many can you get is not really a challenge of capacity. Like, it's not how many techs do I have and I'm trying to fill my board to keep my guys moving. Like, realistically, you should try to get as many as you possibly can, and at whatever the budget is, as long as the ROAS is there, spend. And so what we've tried to determine is, in our markets, 12 plus markets, is this working perfectly in all of them? No, it's not. We have some markets that we're still trying to figure out. We're stuck in that 3-5x range, and I don't like it, but that's just where we're at currently. And then we have some that are 14, 15, 18, 20 plus that we're like, how many millions can we put into this because we want more? The math works, but it won't spend. And so I think it's just important to, first off, just figure out your numbers. Like, cost per lead, yes, it's important. Cost per booked job, more important. Cost per ran job, even more important. And then your ROAS after all of that's done. And so you're going to have to throttle, again, the stuff we talked about earlier. Like, do you need to tighten it up? Do you need to widen your geography, update your audiences? Do you need to change your copy? Copy can go stale. Just prepping for this conversation, we had kind of an entertaining, exercise to see how much creative we went through. So, Reid, you kind of want to go through like just the creative trial and errors that we've done in the last, year to date, I guess.
Yeah, year to date, we have ran 2,503 different ads. So that's a mix of different like audiences, like our targeting, our images, our headline, our copy, location. Like, it's a lot.
And Reid, are you in there launching and running all of these yourself, or like how much is AI helping with some of this stuff?
AI is helping quite a bit. I think the biggest part AI-wise is the Netic auto-responding game changer. I mean, that's the best use of AI we've found. I think AI can help with copywriting and it can help with your creative, but it's that middle ground, right? Like, I wouldn't say don't do it, but I also wouldn't say blindly trust it and go all in on the AI on creatives, because with copywriting and direct copywriting, it's easy once you read a couple books or watch a couple videos, it's easy to get a feel of like what is good direct response copy. It's really hard and time consuming to write it yourself. AI can get it maybe 50, 75% of the way there. But if you just blindly take that copy and run it, it's probably not going to be as good or as effective as if you understood those principles and gave it some edits. So I like to use it to iterate, but I never use it as like, this is the finished product. Like it always takes, I'm always spending at least another 30 minutes. Hey, change this. I like this idea. I don't like this idea. Now that 30 minutes, it used to be 3 hours, or even multiple days of having to sit with it. So it's good for that. On the image side of things, Same thing. Like, I think realistic images typically do better than AI generated. Not that AI generated can't work. You see them all the time. I wouldn't do like the straight ChatGPT generate this ad and just have, the wall of text. Like, you see that everywhere and you know that style. And I think as that becomes more and more common, people are tuning out from those kind of ads more and more. Like, it's just becoming noise. And so you want to try to avoid that as much as you can. Those are two uses of AI that are at least what we're doing right now.
Yep. Yeah. So helping with creative process, copywriting, but then you're looking at everything. Image gen, you guys are doing mostly yourself because you sort of feel like the AI generated images, which I also agree with, are going to just actually degrade even more over time in terms of performance as like everybody gets so used to them. And then obviously like using AI for follow up with leads, and one of the things that you mentioned, but just to tease out, is like you guys are using NetX AI to actually make outbound calls into leads like right when they come in, and so they're getting like those instant follow-ups, and then that's been like really impactful to convert them into book jobs with just the fast turnaround.
Yeah, and I mean, to kind of piggyback on that, when do people use this platform? I mean, yes, you could say it's all the time, but it's a passive entertainment platform, and so we're seeing more lead volume happening nights and weekends, where a traditional call center is either after hours or you're closed. And so, where do we get the highest volume? Like, we track it by day, we track it by hour, we track our response rate, we track our conversion by, speed of response. And it's just interesting to see that, the vast majority of these types of leads actually convert best after 7 p.m. and on the weekends.
Yeah, which maybe you want to staff CSR team at those times, but probably a little bit easier to use software to do the follow-ups. That makes tons of sense. Well, I think I just have like one more question, and then we'll get to some more Q&A on this. So I've always sort of thought about Meta as like a platform that maybe has like a little bit lower ROI because there's a brand halo of everybody seeing your business all the time. That's like a little bit harder to measure, but important. It seems like most of what you guys are doing, it's very direct to job ads and less on the brand side. But how do you sort of like think about that? And, are you guys running more brand campaigns for awareness on Meta at all? Or is it all kind of direct? And then that there's probably just like some percentage that's not going to be directly attributed because, they see the ad and come in direct or.
Yeah, no, I mean, and your sentiment is exactly what mine used to be. I mean, it was like, this is a brand platform. Like, this is our company's voice. It's our, look what we did in the community. It's HVAC Appreciation Day. Here's our employee of the month. We still do all of that. In our team, like we're a fully self-contained internal team. So like I like to think of our marketing team as like church and state. We have our brand people, and then we have our lead gen people, and like Reid handles the lead gen side of things, and our brand team handles the brand side of things. And yeah, they communicate, but like they're not going to try to like overforce each other's principles. I think I like to draw a bunch of crap on my wall, but like there's a scale of like a 1 to 10 that when we were building this team of think of the tone of your message of if it's a 1, it's like soft, it's sensitive, it's here's our brand and we care, babies and puppies. And then you go to the 10 side and it's like monster truck rally, Alex Hermosi, like now today. And so what we kind of joke about with our team is like Reid handles like 6 to 10, and our brand team handles kind of the 1 to 5. And they don't really cross lines, but they definitely look at each other's stuff to make sure that like we're aligned as a brand as a whole.
And so does that mean that you're thinking about the brand campaigns just in a different ROI bucket on Meta? Yep,
absolutely.
Okay. And so there's some percentage of your spend that's actually on Meta ads that is just like brand awareness spend that you're not looking at for the same downstream conversion, because that the same way that you do radio or TV or and any other brand channel, and then you have Reid, you're running all of the like directly measurable ads, and then that way you guys like that's kind of how you think about splitting it. I think it makes a ton of sense.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to scrutinize, performance channels, and whether again Google, PPC, LSA, lead aggregators, Meta. Like if we're spending for leads, we will scrutinize it and rank it accordingly. But we're not doing that with billboards. We're not doing that with whether it be streaming ads or branded social. So we just try to segment those, keep them separate. Now, how do we track that? It's probably a whole different conversation, but yes, we track it, and we're looking for, brand organic lift associated to whatever those efforts were, geographically.
Yeah, totally. Nice. Well, let's get into some Q&A. We have some really good questions. And if you're listening in, check out the tab, throw anything that you have in there and upvote anything you want to make sure we hit on. Maybe we start, any tips on the mechanics of setting up Meta in terms of like audience targeting, whether to use their AI features, Advantage Plus, etc.
Yeah. I know you got a lot of opinions on this.
That's a great one. I have found that it's really hard to beat Meta's auto targeting. They put a lot of money in their algorithm, and personally, I think it's like the best out of the box. Like Google can get really dialed in, but you gotta train it. And Meta, to me, feels like just straight away, it's going to do its thing. It's going to learn. So yeah, I mean, years ago, I used to beat it consistently. Past couple of years, like, honestly, no. And the way I think about it, and the way I've seen some people who work at Meta describe it, is like, you're essentially, when you turn on an ad, it's like you're in this big lake and it's fishing around, and the agent or the algorithm, is going to go around and it's going to fish all different parts of the lake. And as it starts to figure out where the bites are coming from, it's going to narrow its pool down. Now it just fishes in this cove on the lake, and then on that cove, it's going to start fishing around different spots. And it's going to figure out, okay, you can tell I like fishing. By this log or by this downed tree, you get a lot of bites. And so it's going to keep fishing in that area. It's also able to read, obviously, your ad copy, but it looks at your ads itself. So like your videos, it's watching those. Your images, it's looking at those. It's reading what's on it. It's understanding what's in it. And it's figuring out based on not only the ad and, I think this type of person would convert. It's also looking back through all of its historical knowledge of ads like this convert with this type of person. And so, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do anything fancy on it. We will limit. I mean, but again, that's just us. You got to figure out what works for you. Age is a great thing to limit, right? Like if no one 18 years old, or from 18 to 25, no one's buying the product, then like exclude it. Or if this type of customer is the only person that's going to buy, add that in. Or if hey, look, our best customers, we serve this massive area, but our best customers come from this part of town, or like the top part of the city, like target that. And at the end of the day, kind of the theme of like all this is it's all about testing. Like you never really know, and just because I say auto targeting works best, like it works best for me, but run some tests. It's worth testing.
Yep, totally. Well, maybe last question here from Jake that he's a very good one. He says with Meta and YouTube being a hybrid, mid-funnel channel, how do you balance it with high funnel spend like radio and TV, which is maybe like slightly higher, and then also with like the low funnel, and any difference in how you kind of think about plumbing versus HVAC in terms of brand versus non-brand effectively?
Yeah, really good question. I mean, I think I would historically say if you're looking, we keep it simple, brand paid. And so as you're doing your budgeting, like, we discern the difference of brand. We're going to put a certain percent into our brand efforts, and that's based off of our longevity in the marketplace, sentiment tests, things like that. But and then within those channels, like which ones do we choose? I like to consider myself brand agnostic as far as like channels. Your TV people, radio people, billboards, like everything can work to some extent, but like we tend to pick one or two lanes, and then we're just going to dominate those lanes. As far as it being like a mid funnel, that's maybe I would challenge like the thinking is I used to think of it as more of a nice to have, and we should be socially engaged. But where I think the big takeaway over the last, year or so for us is I'd actually put it down in the conversion channel more so now than I would in the traditional brand channel. So it's eating up more of our paid and conversion budget than 6 to 8 months ago. So yeah, I would say put it in there and have it compete with PPC. Where I would challenge, I challenge our team with this and anybody that's listening to this, net new customers. Like you can look at all of your data and say PPC converts at 16x and you're saying 5x. That sounds terrible. Like when I'm saying 5x, I'm meaning like net new customer. Like we don't ever look at our data as returning customers. Those are excluded right away. In our world, we already have them. And then the last question there on the difference between plumbing and HVAC, that's a really good question and we're working on it. Where we have found the best success is, HVAC systems, feel good about that one. Generators, feel good about that one. Water quality, we're playing there and we like it. As traditional water heaters or just dig jobs, drain jobs, anything like underground, I don't know yet. We haven't cracked that one, but it's definitely it's in the conversation. But we're definitely feeling better about our 3 core services: HVAC systems, water quality, and then generators.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer. Makes a ton of sense. Well, we're at time, so super appreciate everybody tuning in and you guys being here. Any kind of final words of wisdom as we wrap things up?
Jake, you want to start?
Understand the seasonality game, and I would say throw out your preconceived notions. As a guy who's kind of bullish about a lot of things, I think being at an organization where we like to challenge the status quo, would rather be I think a comment that's brought up here all the time is, do you want to be right or do you want to be effective? And I think as a marketer, you got to check yourself each day. Are you going into that room with your GMs or your investors or whatever, and are you trying to be right or are you trying to be effective? And we're very fixated on being effective, and sometimes it's fun being wrong. So I would say that's probably a good takeaway for this conversation.
Yeah, I would say test. You got to be willing to test. At the end of the day, it's kind of a science, kind of an art. The more you do it, the more you're going to get a feel for it. And it's not something that'll happen overnight. All of these things build on each other. And so all of the things we figured out don't work for us, well, we know for the next campaign we launch. And so that's how I would think about it. Other takeaways is just the higher your budget, the faster you're going to learn. But that doesn't mean if you have a low budget, you can't learn. Just expect it's going to take a little bit longer. Don't expect you're going to figure it out overnight. And then the last thing I would say, I mentioned this earlier, is just direct response copywriting. If you're trying to generate leads on Meta, learn direct response, get good at it, figure out okay, this kind of headline works better than this, and just test one variable at a time. You'll be able to see the impact it makes, and all that stuff is going to compound.
Yeah, totally. Well, this has been awesome. Super appreciate you guys joining and sharing all your wisdom. And yeah, thanks for everyone tuning in, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you. We appreciate it, Noah.